Hello and welcome to the Common Sense SEO show. Here we are again after quite an absence, probably nearly a year and a half, I think, maybe not quite that long. I think we did one last February or sometime like that, but it's nonetheless, it's been quite a long time. Hello there, Henrik.
Hello, Tony. Yeah, it's been quite a long time since we last did something, and we just thought that there was an opportunity to do something which we believe will be very beneficial to the audience. So we wrapped up the show around the core web vitals, and that's why we're here today.
Yeah. And Core Web Vitals, obviously, everywhere you look, you hear about it. There's all sorts of opinions and perspectives, etc. Some people sort of engage in it very deeply, and other people's are sort of a little bit more dismissive. But nonetheless, no matter which side of the argument you're on, there's obviously a lot of sense within Core Web Vitals. There's obviously a lot of reasons why it's been applied and why it's a thing in the first place. So what Henrik has been doing in particular is really diving into the data, and as he does best, going down the rabbit holes and finding out everything about it. And what he's found today is the key action points for Core Web Vitals, why you should know about it, why you need to know about it, what you need to do about it. And honestly, it's got an action-packed 30 minutes or so ahead of us to really dig into it. And then at the end of it, you will be armed with all the data you need to be dangerous, as they say. It doesn't matter whether you're an SEO, whether you're a local business, there's going to be things in here, or just a web developer. Well, especially a web developer, actually, the ones I've seen. There's going to be things in here which will open your eyes to a lot of truth and a lot of wisdom. And at the end of it, you should be able to go away, apply this in your business if you feel fit, and hopefully you will see the results as a result of that. So I'm going to stop babbling now anyway. I'm going to hand you back over to Henrik, and anybody gets any questions or anything, obviously drop them in the chat. They will get seen, they will get answered. Just be aware that there is a slight delay before we actually see them. And so, Henrik, yeah, please take it away and tell us all about Core Web Vitals.
Yeah, maybe we should see if
if people can hear us.
Hear us. So if I can get a yes in the chat box, I appreciate it. So unfortunately, I don't have YouTube directly, so there might be a small delay in the comments showing up, but I can see we have
to open it here, but
some. Yeah, very high. Good, thank you. So okay, let's dive into it.
Let's go.
I'm gonna share my screen here. Let me see here. Sorry. So you'll see now my screen here. So welcome to Core Web Vitals, and today we will cover the definition of it, and we will go through a case study step by step, showing what I did in order to optimize my website running Elementor. And I know that somebody has had problem with Elementor, so that's what we are going to dive into. And then we will come up with some tips, and we have some resources as well. So what is Core Vitals? Core Vitals is a measurement that Google has established in order for them to try to guess what is the best user experience for anybody who is either on desktop or on a mobile. It was introduced for the desktop here in February, and it was supposed to be introduced for mobile here in May, but it has been postponed. As far as I recall, it's in June it's supposed to be rolled out, but let's see when it happens. The major three components of the core Web Vitals, which has 6 measurements, is actually the largest contentful paint, also called LCP, and that should be happens within 2.5 seconds. And what it does is actually measure how fast is the fold actually being loaded, or what you call the viewport for the user, either on a desktop or on a mobile. So if you have something which is heavy loading, that actually hampers that figure. And then we have something which is called first input delay. And that's when the user can interact with the page, i.e. when the page is loading, you have what you call the main thread. And when that's finished, then the user normally can start interact with the page. And then we have something called cumulative layout shift. And I don't know if you've ever been on a news site or a newspaper site where you have a lot of ads coming on, and they can shift the layout quite dramatically, and that actually gives very, very bad measurements in terms of core Web Vitals. I have some documentation in terms of the further definition, which you can dive into in terms of the actual definition of each of the individual ones. But I found one which I thought was actually maybe quite useful, because the large contentful paint is actually, again, what's Google designed when is the page useful. Like they will say, is the content that you're creating useful for the users. So keep that in mind. Let's go further on. Here I have a simulation of the layout shift, and here you can see that something is happening, being loaded, and it's not until it finished that when it says session window 3 has stopped, that you can interact with the page. Let me go back here to my browser and show you a few little things. So I'll go and share again. So hopefully you can see the tab again where I have the definition. I put that into the description of the video, so you can have that as a resource later on. And we need to have an idea of what they are taking into consideration. They are looking at the first contentful paint, called FCP, which is what they call a field or a lab measurement. The largest contentful paint, LCP, which is also a lab or field. I'll come back to a definition of that. And the first input delay, which is a field measurements, and time to interactive, that's a lab. Total blocking time, that's a lab. And the cumulative layout shift is both a lab and a field measurement. So where does Google get the information from? They get the information from the data sources that they have. This is the Search Console. It's what they call the Chrome UX data, and it comes from the Lighthouse information, i.e. the information that have picked up how Google, also how users interact with your web page. I have also found a weighting of the scores. So in Lighthouse 8, as I call it, the most important measurement is the total blocking time, the largest contentful page, and the cumulative layout shift. And that was those figures that we were looking at. So where do you figure out your numbers? I will go in here and I will take page, just a tick here. I'll find one. I need this one. And I'll analyze it. As it's running, I'll just check if there's any comments. There's no comments. So we'll go back. So I'll put in a URL here where we are searching for the figures for the mobile. And this one is it's an ad I saw on Facebook the other day. It was called House of Xaio in Denmark. And I thought, interesting. And then I thought, let me try to check how their figures actually are looking at. So you can see here, time to interactive is 12.2 seconds on a mobile, which is huge. Total blocking time is 1.3 milliseconds. It should be 100 milliseconds. And you can see the first contentful paint is up after 2.7 seconds. And the speed index is 6.4. And the last contentful paint is 6.9. So this is on the mobile, and if you go over on the desktop, you can see they're still within what they call the acceptable range, but actually it should be up in the 90s if it's a SEO company trying to optimize for their clients. If you go down, you can see here what is actually blocking. So the 2.50 seconds here, you can see there's JavaScript, which is slow to load, and you have reCAPTCHA, you have Facebook, which is blocking, you have Google Tag Manager, which is a little bit slow as well. Normally Google Fonts also could be a problem, which will hamper your site in loading. So
can I ask something here? You just mentioned Google Tag Manager there. I wonder where that is on the. I wonder where that's been called, because I mean the Google Tag Manager do generally tell you to put it down at the bottom, don't they? But then
but for the whole page to be loaded, either
if it's above the default user, yeah.
No, but you have the total blocking time, right? Which means that while it's running, which means that 1.3 seconds actually gives that problem, right?
Yeah.
So and you have on their front page, they have either a video or an image that are blocking the page. So that's something which really is a pain in the neck. That is the videos, the background videos that you're putting on the site. So I would also like to give you another page. Last time we did a show on speed, we were using the GG metrics, and that's of course also a page you can use. But there's a new one called Webpage test.org, where you could go in and start You can look at the core vitals, you can look at Lighthouse, and you can trace different things in checking up on your performance. Sorry. What else to say? I did a case study, and that case study was actually a site I hadn't been using for quite a long time. So I decided that I wanted to go into that site and see what the core vitals look like, and apparently that wasn't really good because there were only 56 on mobile. So I said, I need to fine-tune that site. And what I did was the following. So let's go into the slideshow here again and go through. So the page had a score of 55, which is not good for mobile. So I decided to go in, and the first thing I did was actually to clean up my WordPress. And what do I mean by clean up the WordPress? That's disabling any plugins that that I wasn't using. It was deleting pages that I wasn't using. And then I installed WP Optimize in order to go into my WordPress database and delete the tables that wasn't needed. And I'll come back to that in a little while, because I'll go through it on my page. So basically what I did was to take away all the clutter from the WordPress in order to get a better performance. Then I installed LiteSpeed case. You can use other case plugins, WP Rockets, HD Optimizers from SiteGround, if you're on SiteGround, NitroPack. There are several case plugins that you can use, but you have to be careful what you're choosing and what they can do. Next, I installed two plugins, the Autoptimizer and Async JavaScript, which we also were using last time, and they produced quite good figures for me. And then I installed a plugin called Web Converter for Media. What Web Converter for Media does, it takes all your uploaded images and convert them into WebP. It doesn't compress them. You'll have to use ShortPixel for that, which is extremely good at compressing the images. I'll show you shortly where you can go and do it on the front of the page. Or you can use something called Pixel E, which is a free graphic program where you just load your JPEG or your PNG, and then you immediately save them as the WebP. And as I said, it's free. And then I treat Elementor. Elementor can be a beast, but if you go into the plugin, you have something, a tab called Ongoing Experiments. Normally, they are not active, the settings, but I went in and I said I want to improve asset loading, so I put that to active. Improved CSS loading, which I put to active. Inline font icons, which I put to active. And additional custom breakpoints, which I put to active. And that was actually enough. And sometimes you will have to tweak those settings you have in your CAS plugin or in the Autoptimizer or the Async JavaScript. So it's a continued effort. So on the Elementor, what I did as well was I wanted to load the Google font from a local source. You can do that in advanced setting as well. Or you can install a plugin called OMGF, which enables you to download the Google fonts on the local computer, and then you load it from your local computer rather than going through the Google API, which could be slow from time to time. You have to consider that each time you go outside the server, on your web server, it will take some time. If there is a network problem, it will hamper your loading of your pages. Next, there's also another page builder, DIVI. And in DIVI, you have the same possibility that you can go into performance, and there you can enable dynamic model framework, dynamic CSS. You can load dynamic style sheet inline, critical CSS, critical threshold height, dynamic JavaScript libraries, disabled WordPress emojis, which is important because it's actually take the load off the WordPress, defer Gutenberg blocks CSS, or improve Google Fonts loading, which we don't do if we are using, for instance, the Autoptimizer or the OMGF, which I just showed you. And then you can defer jQuery and jQuery migrate, and finally include jQuery compatibility scripts. It's difficult words. So Elementor, it is in the ongoing experiments that you're going to, and in performance in the DIVI plugin if you're using DIVI page builder. And then finally, I installed what you called plugin called Simple Load Avatars. So instead of going to Avatar, you actually download the avatar, and if you have a site with a lot of users, you're actually loading from the server rather than loading from the Avatar site. So generally, that was what I did in terms of optimizing. So let's go back in a second here. Stop sharing here. And I'll just load something here. Any questions so far? There might be a lot. I'm just.
What led you to the Gravatar thing? Is that because you saw that as a sort of a block?
No, that was just in January because I wanted the site to speed up at the max. The more power, the more speed I can put on the web page, the better. So simply just taking those elements out of the equation, which means that whenever I have to go to a third party somewhere,
yeah,
it will depend on the network traffic to that server and the server's response time. So that was why I said, okay, yeah. Can I get it faster? I will do that.
And the critical CSS, I mean, I quite like that concept because, well, that's not going off site, but it is loading another file, isn't it, from your server? But the main thing there is that, generally speaking, most websites load the whole CSS in its entirety for every page, even if it's only possibly using 20% of the code that's in there.
There's two things in it. Is that the size of the file in itself, Tony, and the split up or either consolidation of the JavaScript file. So if you have a lot of JavaScript file which is below 10 KB, then it makes sense to consolidate them into one and minify that. By minifying is that you're taking out any spaces, any line breaks, etc., so that you take that.
Yep.
Some question here. Larry say, can you go through the setting for WP Rocket, Autoptimizer, JavaScript? I'll go through the Autoptimizer settings. I'm not touching WP Rocket, but I'll go on another one a little bit later, which is the Little Pack, because that's a little bit better than WebRocket, it's faster. And Jan is asking, I tested DIVI, Elementor, Cadenders, and now testing the last version of WordPress. And he installed WP Rocket, and he reduced from 1.5 second to 0.6 second. Yeah, that's super, Jan. The basic idea about this is that go in, tweak the settings, and tweak the settings, and tweak the settings, because you might have something which I'm not I'm not focusing on. So basically, what you have to do is tweaking. And what I had to say is that whenever you are trying to measure the insights of a page speed insight, it will show a figure. Have you changed or tweaked the page into the case or the cases, and then the cache, and then try load the page again, and then test again, and you'll have maybe a little bit lower number or an equal number, but then test immediately again, because then you'll maybe see an improvement of the ratings. And basically, what you can say, you have to continually test the figure over a period of time, because there could be different issues with the servers on a particular day, load times on a particular day. I'm doing a test at the moment for some news sites, and they are influenced by various factors, and they actually vary from hour to hour, so to speak. So test. That's the only thing I can say. So let's take a look at.
I know from my experience, the speed or the optimization plugin tends to be dependent on the host as well, because it could be down to their preference. But some of the hosts, because we've tried all sorts of hosting companies, some always some will recommend LiteSpeed, some will recommend WP Rocket, some will recommend whatever. I can't whichever one that they like. I mean, there may be reasons why the server technology, etc., would be. I know LiteSpeed is very specifically built around the LiteSpeed server sort of.
The LiteSpeed cache plugin has some features which you can use without the LiteSpeed server. But normally you have to be on a LiteSpeed server in order to get the max benefit out of the plugin.
Yeah.
And so I know you have been playing around with the super cache, or
me. I'm on WP Rocket at the moment with WPX hosting, because I quite like that. I seem to be getting reasonable results there. I just leave that on there because they pre-install it, and I think that would probably be a way a lot of people go. They sort of pick up one plugin because that's the one that happened to be installed in WordPress when they first started using it, and they get familiar with it, don't they? And it becomes a bit of a friend, and then so familiarity has got something to do with it. Server technology has got something to do with it, and then the other thing, like you just said, then is whack them on there, test them, and see which one you get the best results from that server. Because most of us that I know that are here tonight and us, we don't have just one hosting solution. We have many, so therefore it's very difficult to be loyal to one.
Yeah, but what you in general can say about hosting is that if you're sitting on a hosting which have a bad reputation, then of course you should swap immediately and find an alternative host. But most of the hosts live off affiliates and affiliate marketing, which means that there's a lot of shitty reviews because they just want some affiliate income. So you really have to think about what you're doing hosting. If you have something which is really giving you a reasonable or potential income, swap to either pay as you go on Cluster or some of the biggest one where you're getting a decent performance for it's like everything in life, that if you're always buying cheap cars, cheap clothing, cheap food, you're paying for what you're getting what you're paying for. So and I have been host now for some period of time, which actually is not expensive, but it's quite fast, and they are sitting next to a huge Apple data center. So the infrastructure around their data center is superb. So I'm actually benefiting on that. Barry is asking, have you come across expire headers, caching problems, and how did you fix it? Well, you will have to look at TTL, time to live, which is normally a setting you can set in your cache plugin. Let's try to see whether we can dive into it. So let's go in here. Share screen.
And that's not so much about the page speed as in the first instance, is it? Because
no, it's how long the plugin or the server or the CDN is,
or the browser, in fact, indeed, is storing the whichever image is into it. For revisits. Or if you go into a page, so every time it loads a new web page on a site, it doesn't load the logo every time because it's got it stored locally and whatever. But you've got to be careful with those settings, because if you set it for too long and then you change something, then obviously people might be seeing the wrong images or whatever. So there's always a payoff. You've got to strike.
But there's settings so you can actually purge whenever you do a change, right?
Yeah.
So let's dive into. So you can see my screen now, and Autoptimize. The settings there is for your JavaScript and for your images, and the critical CSS, which you can go in and set. So you can go in and optimize the JavaScript code, tick that box off. If the JavaScript files are not too big, you can go in and say, I want to aggregate those. And then there's a few other sessions where you can try to see how those is actually performing with your site, right? And the same, you go down for the optimized CSS code, you can aggregate it. You can aggregate inline codes in the CSS in the HTML, and that's actually giving you a boost performance. You have a possibility to optimize the HTML and things like that. So I haven't done that in this optimization, and I want to just to say, okay, let's try to look at the speeds inside for this particular site. So I'll go up there.
I mean, the thing with Autoptimize as well is, of course, they've got the wizard there. So if you're a bit nervous about playing with these things, you just go and click the wizard. It literally runs through 5 different scenarios. It tweaks the settings and does 5 random tests, and it tweaks the various different settings that Henry's just been showing you there, and it works out which one. Well, it gives you the feedback on each of them, and then it sort of says, "This is the best result we found. Do you want us to turn this setting on or these settings on?" And so if you are nervous and you don't understand the questions in the settings there, just run the wizard. It works fantastically, actually, doesn't it?
So what I just want to show is that I get a constant figure of roughly 91 on my site now. And in the JS, CSS, and HTML, I just ticked off the optimized JavaScript code. I didn't aggregate because there was a few large files, and then I ticked off the optimize my CSS code and aggregate the CSS, and that's actually gave a lot. And because I have used, I'll come back to that in a second, the image plugin, but in the image plugin, I haven't done anything other than I initiated lazy loading for the images, and I'll show you where I actually tweak that setting a little bit, because what's above the fold I want to preload, not to delay. So what else did I did here? The critical CSS, I didn't set any rules here. So that was the only settings I tweaked for Autoptimize. If we go back to the plugin, I went into Async JavaScript, and what I enabled there, enabled the plugin itself, and then I went down and hit apply defer.
Can you say why?
Because I wanted to defer the JavaScripts so that the main thread is processed before it actually starting load the other JavaScripts. So that was actually the only thing I did in here as well. So let's go back and find the plugins, and let's take a look at the plugin called WebP Media Converter settings. What I did was I went in here, I went down to the bottom. I said I want to convert JPEG and PNGs. I could have taken GIFs as well. So I went down to the bottom and I said regenerate all, which means that it's regenerate the pictures for the website. So wherever there is a saving in terms of weight, i.e. kilobytes, from a JPEG or PNG to a WebP, it does. There has been some concern about why should you use WebP, because it wasn't supported previously by all browsers, but now most browsers is supporting. There was a problem with Safari, and on old Safari iOSs, you won't see any images, you would just see a frame of where the image should have been.
And WebP is supported transparency on PNGs, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really, and if you go into, let me find it. this website, I'm going to ShortPixel. Here you can actually upload images and get them compressed and lossy compression level, and that really scale the images down. You can also have an API connection, but it's rather expensive if you have a huge site because of the calls that will come from the pages. So I will prefer just go up, minimize the images as much as possible. You could also in your website use, instead of the image source attribute, you can use the source set attribute. And the source set attribute allows you to have maybe an image for wide 348 or something like that, which is equal to a mobile phone, or 448 for a tablet, and then a bigger one, which is suitable for a desktop. So whenever the page is loading, then the viewport of the device will determine which image is being loaded. I.e., on a small device, a small image will be presented. And that's actually a quite good idea to do that. Let me go back here. What else? Yeah. Let me just show you an other little plugin I installed, which is called WP Meteor or Meteor. It's actually one that's boosting your performance on top of all the other plugins. So it works with most cache plugins and the plugins that will reduce your JavaScript or your CSS. So basically, I didn't use the LiteSpeed plugin for any minification or whatever on the JavaScripts. So actually, we just waste to load the plugin. But what I did here was actually, with those two plugins, the Async JavaScript, the Autoptimize, the changes to the Elementor, the
WP Optimize as well as Autoptimize, didn't you?
Yeah, the WebP converter for media and the WP Meteor, that was actually what really boosted. I have to confess, I had used the Xaio plugin from the guys at Project Supremacy, and when I deactivated that, it actually gave me 2 full points in performance indicators on that alone. And I know that there's several plugins produced by various developers, which is actually bloating your WordPress installation. So you have to really be careful. Is it necessary for your performance or for your web page? Maybe not. So go and delete those. So what could we say in terms of the optimization here? Well, let me go to the web page. You can see here the above fold has a huge image, which is a featured image. What I did was actually I preloaded that image and defer the loading of all other images, deferring of all other JavaScripts. And the Autoptimize has a feature. So whenever you have installed that, you will see on the right side of your pages where there's a setting where you can go in and actually where you can go in and say, I want to preload this image. You just give in the image that you want to preload here. And this is the settings, which is for the page as such. So that's how I came up to this figure of 91. So it was a few things actually I had to do in order to improve it, and it worked really well. What I didn't do was actually connect a CDN. I could have connected Cloudflare, which I'll try to do, and maybe we can do that in the follow-up, so I can just connect Cloudflare and see if it's improved, and we can upload a video. So please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get a notification when I'm uploading it, and then we can see how that performs. Another thing, so we're not dragging this on and on and on, is I did something in terms of going to Nitro pack.io. Can't spell. It's late here, so I'm tired. So if you go to I'm not an affiliate or something from NitroPack, but what's interesting is that the technology that they're using is actually, when you have a JavaScript, they're taking out of the main thread some of the actions, which actually giving you a better measurement or metric, but it also has an extremely powerful impact on your page loading. So you saw I had the 91 here, so I'll try to load the page here again. Just now. It will run for a little while, and then by the way, nope, I'm not sharing, so I should share this.
And the thing is although it's taken a little while to go through all of these plugins and settings, and it's a bit of a confusion at this moment if you're not familiar with these plugins, the actual time to implement all these changes on it, once you get used to it and done it a few times, I mean, it's literally what, 15 minutes?
Oh no, because you will have to go in and tweak the different settings.
Oh right, yeah. Sorry.
For instance, Valerie said I had a problem with the headers causing a problem, so she would have to go in and look what is the time in milliseconds or set for that particular header or for the cache.
Okay.
So let me see the results here. So you can see on mobile, I will, if I'm using the Nitro pack, I will improve my desktop from 97 to 100. The time to first byte would be improved from 0.61 second to 0.18 seconds. On mobile, I will go from the measured to 86 to 98. And I would actually have find figures all the way through, but what you should look at is the image savings, because on image saving, I don't have any improvement, which means that what I did by installing the plugin was sufficient. I have to say that the Nitro Pack is free to use for a website. You will get a label in the footer saying that you're using Nitro Pack, and you will if you have over 5,000 visitors a month, then you will have to upgrade to a paid plan. But if you have a smaller site, use it. If you come over 5,000 visitors a month, then hopefully you have some conversion, so it can pay off and pay the plan. So I think yes, it could be a little bit confusing with all the different plugins, but what we have done in the description below is we have put a small checklist of what we have done, and we will do a write-up on the website, actually in more detail, what we have done. So you can go and have a follow through, and we will put in images also, so you can idea what to do. So that's all for me, well, from me. Any questions out there? It doesn't seem like that. Give it a small tick, because it's a little bit slow in updating the comments.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, we've gone through, because we've tried to cover everything off in the one show rather than splitting it up. We've covered everything you need to know about the core web vitals at this moment, so you can come away and get working on your sites pretty much on the things.
Valerie has a good valid question here. So if you use Nitro Pack, you don't have to use any other plugins. That's correct. You don't have to use Async, JavaScript, Autoptimize. The only thing I will suggest you do, Valerie, is that you try to clean up your installation as much as possible anyhow. But otherwise, they have a CDN, they have optimization of your images, and it's the only thing you have to do is to go into their website, sign up. You will get API key and a secret code, which you would then put into the plugin, and off you go. So I think that's, compared to the hassle, it's easy to get something up and running quite fast. It takes you maybe 10 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes to sign up, and then you're up and running.
So start there, see how you get on, and then. But I mean, it's good practice anyway to be getting rid of your unused plugins. Wow, everybody.
But as I said, I wanted to see whether I could use plugins that was free, and Frank Goosen's to Autoptimize and Async JavaScript, they're actually quite good. Then, of course, the WP Optimizer is also a plugin which is really good for backup. I'm using for a few websites where I have the pro version of it, where I just automatically back up my website, and they are stored in Dropbox, or I can use AWS to store it if I wanted that. So,
and is that with Updraft?
Uplift.
They're the same company now, aren't they?
Yeah. WP Uplift or WP Optimizer. It's the same. Yeah. So, Valerie, yes. And you can go and sign up, and it doesn't fiddle anything with your website. If you decide not to use them, then you just turn it off again, and nothing happens to your code or whatever. So I think that's maybe the quick
Do you have to
fix.
change your DNS?
Nope.
No. It's a long time since I've actually used it, to be fair.
No, but if you're going to use Cloudflare, then you have to change your DNS.
Yeah.
To that DNS to serve the pages. Any other questions out there? It doesn't seem so. So thank you very much for dropping by this little show, and hopefully you can get something out of it. If you have any further questions, put them in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel, and
we'll be back.
we'll be back, maybe. Yeah. Have a nice day over there, and
thank you very much.
Oh, Jan Jakob said I just ran NitroPack. It's got speed from 0.41 to 0.85. Oh, there you see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's a success story. Well done. Well done for taking action.
No.
Oh, not just now.
That's actually a negative one, right?
Oh, was it? Oh, sorry. I thought he said from 4 point something to 0 point.
He just ran NitroPack and got speed of from 41 up to 0.85 seconds. So that's a little slow. Test it again. Yeah, and it might be the first initiation of the cache, and the figures might go up. And if they don't, then you don't use NitroPack. Okay, guys. Take care. Have a nice one.
Catch you later.
Bye-bye.